One of the questions I hear the most is how can we get more leads so we can build our business? Well, there are a few ways to do it, and today I want to share with you my experiences with cold calling, telemarketing, appointment setting, whatever you want to call it. At our MSP, we have experience in building both an in-house sales program and more recently outsourcing it to an industry-specific appointment setting service. So in the next two episodes of the IT Provider Network podcast, I'm going to be talking about the ugly truth behind appointment setting, inside sales, cold calling, whatever term you want to use for it, dialing for dollars for your MSP. So today, let's talk about building an inside sales operation.
Welcome to the IT Provider Network. Are you a managed service entrepreneur wanting to take your business to the next level? Do you excel in IT but feel your business management could be better? Join Terry Rossi, where every episode he shares the skills, tips, and tricks that helped him to build a successful worldwide business.
As I'm recording this, February is coming to a close. This year has really kicked off with a bang. We've had a wild couple months so far. We have two new salespeople on our team, and my number one closer has been promoted to our chief revenue officer. It's always great to promote from within, but it also presents some level of risk. What if your best salesperson is not a great leader? Have you just simultaneously lost your best salesperson and made a bad hire? Believe it or not, it happens all the time. Like any hire, you want to make sure you're doing the best thing you can before you hire that person to make sure the candidate is the best candidate for the job. Lucky for us, this internal promotion is working out great. He's building a team of salespeople underneath of him, and he's doing what he has always done best for us, take care of our customers and help us build the company. It reminds me back in 2008 when I hired my first salesperson for the MSP side of our business. That person was an older guy. He was a seasoned sales pro, or at least I thought he was. It's hard to remember the details now, but I know my thought process was, hey, let's bring on a sales guy. Let's get one guy that can handle everything. He can cold call, network, prospect generate, create proposals, do the closings. He can do it all. We'll get one sales guy. That'll be enough to build our team. In reality, the guy I hired, and he worked for me for quite a long time, was not really a great salesperson. And I was kind of nuts to think that any one person could be truly proficient in all those sales activities. Luckily, both of us realized this early on, and we realized we needed some help. This older guy, and I say that in quotes, he recruited one of his former coworkers, and this former coworker is now our CRO. So late in 2008, when we started our MSP, we also started and built out our inside-outside sales team. That's what I called it, inside-outside sales. Inside sales was responsible for two main things. They were responsible for cold calling and database maintenance. Outside sales, that person was responsible for everything else. Everything after the first appointment was scheduled, that was the responsibility of outside sales. To build our outside sales process, there was a bunch of things we had to do, a bunch of things we needed to get working to make that whole thing work. And I guess it started with buying a cold list back in 2008. Back then, we decided on using Hoovers. We used Hoovers for our first list purchase because they kind of had a different offering that was pretty unique at the time. Instead of just buying a list with some predefined criteria, industry, company size, number of computers, we could actually use a web page and a data selection form and just export records that met our criteria. And we exported them right from Hoovers right into our PSA. In our case, that was ConnectWise Manage. And then as our needs changed, we could adjust the form, the web page form, so that we could export data with different criteria. So different than just buying a list, we kind of had a data export partner. I haven't really purchased anything from them since early 2016, but back then it was about $5,000 a year for 10,000 downloads. About $2 a record if you managed to extract all 10,000 leads. For the 5K, you were able to have like 3 users and use some more functionality. But for me, all I wanted was the data extract, so it was $2 a record. We've also bought lists from places over time, like the local Chamber of Commerce, the local tip club, and other vendors. But the bulk of our original list, the list that we still mine today, over 15 or 18,000 contacts, is from Hoovers. Whatever service or list you buy, know that you're buying a cold list. A cold list means that the companies and contacts on that list have probably never heard of you, and the data in the list is going to need some work to be useful. You'll find that some of your newly purchased contacts are irrelevant, they're outdated, or they're just plain incorrect. This is where having an in-house salesperson really serves you double duty. Not only is he calling for appointments, but with every dial, it's a chance for him to groom and clean your data. In our operation, we used every call to refine our database. Even if the inside salesperson was unable to get through to the decision maker, that is the person capable of buying what you're selling, he could use that connection to make some adjustments to the records. He did this by using the internet. While the phone was dialing, he was checking out the contact on LinkedIn, looking him up on other social media sites. He was looking at the company website to verify the address, phone number, in some cases, even the general description of the company. Often when you buy a list, all this ancillary data is wrong. It's incomplete, it's wrong, it's inaccurate, whatever. It needs some work. Having an inside salesperson gives you a built-in check on your data. He was also able to use some social engineering to add data to our database. If the person he was asking for was no longer with the company, he might ask, who's responsible for IT now? If he was lucky, he got a name. If he was even more fortunate, he got a name and the gatekeeper put him right through to that person. Every bit of information he received about the company and the contact, he updated in our ConnectWise PSA. This became a treasure trove of information for us. We've been building it for over 10 years, and there's a wealth of data in there on our 15,000 contacts. One of the other beneficial things that our inside salesperson did was document every call. We had a shorthand that we added to every ConnectWise activity. It doesn't really matter what the shorthand is, just decide on some abbreviations and standardize them. Shorthand codes like LM for left message, VM for voicemail, GK for gatekeeper, DM for decision maker, OOO for out of office. These like little shorthand comments in the activity gave not only the inside salesperson a clue to his next call, but it also gave everyone else in the organization visibility into what he was doing. If your CRM can copy an activity and then add to it, make sure you use that feature. Being able to do this is a great help. In ConnectWise, this is called close plus new follow-up. So if you close an activity with close plus new follow-up, it'll close your existing activity and set up a new one for you to schedule. But not only that, it also copies all the previous notes into this new activity. Think about the power of this. Some prospects we've called on for 5 years before we ever received a first appointment. Our outside salesperson walked into the first appointment with 5 years of history on the prospect. All of the uncovered data, all of the pain points, all of the people, all the contact dates, all the previous service providers, contract deadlines and dates, line of business applications, anything the insider is all in one activity that was shared between the inside salesperson and the outside salesperson going into the customer's environment for the first appointment. Absolutely brilliant and a huge competitive advantage over our other competitors. Another big part of the success of our inside-outside sales team was the process. We have a detailed procedure for the flow of the process from the cold call to the first appointment. Every activity, every opportunity, every ticket is created with the same verbiage, the same statuses, and the same detail. Not only does this give us a process, but it also gives us metrics, the metrics we need to manage our sales team. So what are some of those metrics? We measure a lot of things at our MSP, but for inside sales, we're primarily concentrating on the following 4 metrics. The first is dials. How many times did our inside salesperson actually dial the phone and attempt to reach a prospect? Now, dialing today is not what it was 20 years ago. People rarely answer the phone. So this number is usually pretty high, and the next metric is usually pretty low. So the next one is calls connected. So how many times did we actually connect to a live human, the person we were calling for? This is calls connected, and we measure that. It's about 1/10 of the dials. Next is first appointments booked. This is how many first appointments or new appointments did we get during the period with new prospects. This is different than the next metric that we measure, which is first appointments completed. How many of these booked appointments actually were kept? This way we measure how many were canceled, how many were no-shows, whatever the case may be. So we strive, obviously, for booked and completed to be the same, but that's not often the case. And sometimes that's a premise problem. Sometimes that's a commitment problem. Who knows? But we measure those metrics and keep track of them. The last one, first appointments completed, is actually a status that the outside salesperson uses when he's able to attend a booked appointment. So know that. It's, even though it's an inside sales metric, it's captured by the outside salesperson. So why is it important to track these metrics? Well, you need to know how successful your inside salesperson or your team is doing. We always strive for 80 dials a day and 1 new appointment a week. This gave our guy plenty of time to stay on top of the database, as well as plan his next workday. And talking about the next workday, usually a part of the inside salesperson's calling schedule for the next day is made up of past attempts where he couldn't connect. Remember that closed plus new follow-up status? Well, the new follow-ups are scheduled for the future. And with a little care, the inside sales rep can be filling a part of his future days with reattempts. I mentioned 1 new appointment a week. That's the goal we strive for. It's important to say that these are usually really good qualified appointments. If you outsource your appointment setting, I encourage you to keep in mind the quality as well as the quantity of the appointments you're getting. Doesn't make sense for your sales guy to be running all over your locale, driving around to meet with people that are not qualified. So you need to strike that balance between being a little bit outside of the perfect prospect, because sometimes you can get great business from that, and completely wasting your time. So make sure you're having real clear communications with your inside salesperson, whether they're outsourced or not, on what the criteria is for an appointment. So now the time's come. Your inside salesperson is actually connected to someone on the phone, someone that could be the one who decides whether or not you're going to be a service provider for them. So now what? Now is where you need someone. Now is where the true inside salesperson shines. You need someone that can think like an improv artist. Have you ever seen a TV show like Whose Line Is It Anyway? If you haven't seen it, check it out on YouTube. But it's an improv show. An improvisational artist must be quick on their feet. They need to react in unknown situations in mere seconds. So does your inside salesperson. We did this, and we fostered this kind of behavior by implementing a decision tree for our inside salesperson. If the person on the other end of the phone says this, then you say this. If they say that, then you say something else. This gives your inside salesperson a quick way to be fast on their feet, and he can use this document as the building block to refine future conversation he has based on his actual calls, what's happening on the phone. We also came up with several premises or reasons for the call. Most of the time, our inside salesperson just introduced our company and said that we may be able to help them as we've helped other companies in the local area, either by saving money, improving efficiencies, or getting more out of their technology spend. We also always touted our accomplishments. We were just named to this list or that list, and we've helped others in your industry. It's important to try to zero in on the industry that you're calling, kind of make them feel like you're working with their competitors and they might be a step ahead of them. You're going to have to figure out the premises for yourself. It's a little bit more complex than this podcast to be able to kind of talk through how that would work. But suffice to say, your only goal is just to get an appointment. Don't try to sell them over the phone. Just try to get your guy in front of them, face to face, belly to belly. You don't sell IT with a web page. You sell it with stories and conviction, and by building a relationship belly to belly with the guy you're sitting across from. Sell like it's 1985. So I talked a little bit about the importance of messaging in the very first episode of the IT Provider Network. You can find that on the website at the itprovidernetwork.com. Lastly, I want to say that inside sales, like everything else in sales, is a function of process and also belief. The caller needs to believe in your company. He needs to believe in your team, and he needs to believe in the services you provide. If you're going to build an inside sales process, you need to include your salesperson on the wins that your company has. He needs that gas to keep dialing, to keep listening to no's and hang-ups all day long. So that's it. Easy peasy. Well, not really. It's not really that easy, but I hope you got some takeaways from this episode of the IT Provider Network podcast. I'd love to hear what you're doing to address lead generation. Shoot me an email. Tell me about your inside sales initiatives. You can write me at terry@theitprovidernetwork.com. And if you haven't already got on the IT Provider Network mailing list at www.itprovidernetwork.com, please do. It's the only way I know you're listening, and your signups encourage me to keep putting podcast episodes out. In episode 31 coming up, we're going to talk about outsourcing your appointment setting to an industry-specific service, some of the pros and cons of doing that. Until then, have a great day. Remember, we are IT, and thanks as always for listening.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you've been inspired. Check us out on social media via @ITProviderNet and visit us at www.itprovidernetwork.com for past episodes, show notes, videos, and more. And we hope you'll join Terry next time on the IT Provider Network.